Window cleaning, it's not exactly rocket science, is it? You just throw the water on, you squeegee round and you tidy up round the edges. That's all there is to it. So why buy the DVD? It's because window cleaning is a skill, and like any skill, there are various different levels of ability. We'll just show you what we made. Excuse me, sir, what's your name?
John.
John, Steve, nice to meet you. We're just doing a DVD on window cleaning. Have you ever done window cleaning before?
No.
You haven't. Would you like to give it a go? Come on, be a sport.
All right, yeah.
Well, that's the spirit, come on.
Sorry. So, I'm actually going to chop off.
Well, thank you very much, John. Was that easy?
Yeah.
Not too bad, was it? I mean, just look at the edges here.
Missed a few, but
Just a few, couple of drips, but that's not a bad effort.
that done, I suppose.
Give that, no.
I made it worse.
Yeah, it's not as easy as it looks, is it?
It's not that easy.
It's not as easy as it looks, but that was a pretty good start for an absolute beginner.
Well, thanks, mate.
So not bad for an absolute beginner, but if you look closely, lots of drips at the top here and a lot of mess along the side. So what we'd like to do is move from an absolute beginner to a man with 12 years experience. And this is Mark Henderson, and he's just cleaning this window here. And he'll be sharing some of that experience with us throughout the course of this DVD. Isn't that right, Mark?
I'll do my best.
Very good. So step number one, Mark. Let's just say I want to start up a window cleaning business. What's the kind of basic equipment I need?
Right, you don't need a lot.
Uh-huh.
Just what we see here, really. First thing you need is a mop, or sometimes called an applicator. Of course, a squeegee.
Uh-huh.
So we wet the windows, take the water off with a squeegee.
Right.
Very simple. Somewhere to keep them. They're called a bucket on a belt or a holster.
Uh-huh.
It's a bit deceiving to call it a bucket on a belt. You can use a little bit of water if your mop runs dry
Right.
in there, but it's usually going to be dirty water, so really we want to be emptying that out as we work. It's more somewhere to keep the tools safely, easily accessible. Other thing we need is pouches, somewhere to keep the cloths. I've also got another squeegee blade for framework.
Okay, framework, yeah.
Keep the cloths dry longer. I've got a razor blade, always protected, take off stubborn stains, bird muck or paint.
Oh, okay, I'm with you.
Now I wear one pouch at the front and one at the back.
Why is that then?
I have a wet cloth at the front for wiping windowsills, and the dry cloth at the back. If I'm up against a window, it's easily get the cloth out.
Oh, okay. Mark, so there's your cloths there, but I noticed the cloths you've got in here are completely different colour, different texture.
Yeah, that's right. These are microfiber cloths, very, very absorbent.
Okay.
Excellent for leaded windows or general window. I prefer to use these for general window cleaners. I find that they absorb a lot more.
Alright.
But this is scrim cloth. When you buy it pre-washed, they'll look like that. But they tend to leave fibres on the windows until they're worn in.
I'm with you.
When they're worn in, after they've been washed a few times, they'll start to look more like that.
So that will be that in a few washes' time.
That's right, after it's been used.
And which do you prefer then? Which is the best?
That's ideal for
Okay.
how they should be, but you've got to
Start
stick
off
with
like
it
that.
with that.
So what else have we got in here that we need? Of course we've got the bucket, that's the most obvious thing.
Yeah, we've got the bucket. This is a round bucket, but now you notice I was using 14-inch equipment here, which is ideal for residential use, and it's okay dipping the bucket, the mop in a bucket like that. When you start using longer equipment on bigger windows, really a round bucket's going to waste time. You're going to have to dip it in that end and then turn it round, dip it the other way. Whereas a long bucket, you can dip it in straight.
Oh,
And it's
okay,
a lot
yeah, I
quicker.
understand, so it's quicker. But of course the smaller bucket's easier to put in your
right.
boot, isn't it?
And usually I would count to 3 with a leading brand washing up liquid.
Washing up liquid, okay. And how much should you fill the bucket up? Is it to the top or halfway? Or?
Enough so it's comfortable to carry. If you fill it up too much, it's going to be cumbersome, it's going to be sloshing about over your legs, so
Okay.
enough to comfortably carry.
Alright, now Now, one thing that sticks in my head about window cleaning is that it's freezing in the winter. You're okay because you're working hard, but the old fingertips freeze off.
You're right. So what we do, we buy some neoprene gloves. These are purposely designed for window cleaners. Most gloves you buy normally would get wet and soggy. Your hand's probably going to still feel cold. Whereas these, the water, it works a bit like a wetsuit. The water inside there will keep the get warm, keep your hands warm, and you've still got a good feel on the equipment.
It's tight to get on, but I see. Okay. It's comfortable.
This is strips of rubber you buy. You can cut them to size. It's really important you change your rubbers the more often you change them, the quicker you'll work. If you find that there's lines being left on the window, it's likely that the rubber's got a nick in it.
Okay.
It's maybe got caught on a bit of grit or something, and it's the rubber's ruined. So we need to change that. You can, of course, take the rubber out and try the other side before that. See if that helps.
Longer then, yeah.
Until you get back to the car, and then you may wish to change the rubber. If you take a pair of pliers, it's what's called dog earing.
Yeah.
We bend very, very slightly the ends here towards the rubber,
Yeah.
and that extra little bit of pressure will just help get the water out of the corners when you're doing when you
Hold it to the
squeegee
glass.
it.
I'm with you. Is that it then? I mean, surely there's more to it than that when it comes to starting up, or is that more or less your outlay for the beginning?
Yeah, with as little as that, you could be out cleaning windows.
Wow. All you need now, of course, is to learn how to do it.
Right, well, let's show you.
Residential homes, such as this one with a typical extension with flat glass. How would we clean this type of window? What are the basic techniques? Come on, let's have a look. Here's Mark, he's ready in place. He's got a squeegee in his mop, his applicator and the scrim cloths that we've mentioned already. Mark, how do you clean this kind of window?
Okay, well, we need to start by mopping the window
Uh-huh.
using the applicator. Now, the soap has got to be of the right consistency. If it's not soapy enough, the blade won't move smoothly and it'll drag on the window. So you start by taking the blade, going up into the corner at an angle,
Right.
across to the other corner at 45 degrees, pull the blade down, the palm points upwards with the help of the wrist rotating, and then it's rainbow shapes. You can use your thumb and forefinger to direct the handle,
Yeah.
picking up all the water, and we finish at the bottom. So the only thing left to do now is just to look for any watermarks that may have been left around the frame. Any what we call bleed from the detergent might kind of seep into the window, so we just tie that up with a cloth, and we call that detailing.
Okay.
Now hopefully if we've practiced the blade and the blade technique, we wouldn't have left a lot of detailing to do.
Right.
So I want to keep that to a minimum. That's one way we're going to save time.
But I mean, it was ever so slow. You'd never make a decent living out of that, would you?
You're right, Steve, at that pace we'd be here all day.
Uh-huh.
So I'll do it again, but this time I'll do it a lot quicker. But
Yeah.
I'm going to make 5 common mistakes that people starting off window cleaning are likely to make. See if you can spot what they are.
Alright, so that was much quicker, and I mean, I can't see all 5. I can see there's a massive splodge there of water. I mean, that's the mistake. Well, what are the other 4?
That's right, the most obvious mistake I've made is my squeegeeing technique was poor, so I've left watermarks where I haven't been paying attention to turning the squeegee.
Right.
So that's the most obvious mistake. The remedy for that is obviously as you squeegee, look to see where the water is and bring the blade back up to the point above where the watermark left is, and you can correct the mistake as you go.
Okay, I'm with you. Yeah. So that's the first mistake. But what are the other 4 mistakes that you made then?
Well, the first mistake I made was the amount of water I used. I used far too much water, my mop was dripping wet. So that's excess water that's going to be, the more water we put on, the more we're going to have to take off. And you'll notice I've got it all over the frames, which means there's a lot of detailing to do.
Oh yes.
So
of
it's
course,
really
yeah.
unnecessary amount of water. The remedy for that is to, once you take the mop out, give it a shake away from the windows.
Right.
And you could even use your blade just to scrape the water back into the bucket. So your mop shouldn't be dripping, just
So that's about right,
just
is it?
about right.
Okay.
I made was I mopped right up to the frame edge. In fact, as we said, we got it all over the frames.
Yeah.
Whereas really, we just need to leave a slight gap, and the water and the blade will carry the water into the corners
Okay.
as we go. So it's unnecessary to go up on the frame again, partly because of the amount of water I used, but bad mopping technique.
Right.
With a lot of practice, you can go quite quickly without actually touching the frame.
Right. Okay.
That's not as easy as it looks.
Right. But does that clean the windows by using your blade?
As long as, really, we're not talking about a 2-inch gap. What we're looking for is as close to the frame as possible without touching it.
Okay. All right.
So, in fact, the fibres of the mop might touch slightly the outside of the frame, but we don't want to be getting excess water in the frame.
Okay.
The final mistake I made was less obvious, perhaps. I'll show you again. As we squeegee, ideally we want to be finishing with the blade flat, whereas I finished with the blade against the side of the frame. And the difference is we leave a lot of excess water here, whereas if we were to finish flat like this, and on the bottom edge the excess water drains off, and then the final thing to do is to clean the sill.
As opposed to cleaning
As
everywhere.
opposed to doing the detailing
Okay.
around the side. Now I'm using the scrim in the middle of the window. You really want to be avoiding using a cloth anywhere in the centre of the window if possible. So, because you might not see anything from the outside, but on a sunny day looking out, that you could leave cloth fibres or smears that you can't see, but the household is going to see when the sun's shining.
Right.
So with good squeegee technique, you'll avoid having anything to do with the cloth anywhere in the window except the detailing around the side.
Right. Okay. So that's beautiful, and it was quick, right?
Well, that was a lot quicker, but why don't we try that again, putting into practice those points, and we'll see the difference. So I'll do this side.
Okay.
So we shake them off, excess water, go as close to the edge as possible. Into the corner, 45 degrees, palm upwards, rainbow shapes. And we finish with the blade on the bottom edge.
Excellent.
I've still got a little bit of detailing to do, but a lot quicker than what was left here.
That's a nice finished job there, but I mean, I'm a little bit pedantic, and if I was a customer, I'd be a little bit unhappy with the mess left at the bottom there. What would you do with that?
You're dead right, Steve. In fact, most customers would complain if you don't do the sills. A lot of window cleaners neglect to do that, and very often they'll be sacked from the job because of it. It's going to make all the difference to the customer if you leave the windowsill nice and clean instead of looking untidy like that with dirty water. Now, there's 2 ways we could do it. We could just use a cloth and give it a wipe, and it does a nice job. But very quickly, your cloth's going to be dirty, it's going to be wet, and you're going to have to either wring it out or change it, going back to the van or the car. It's going to take up your time. So what I do, not many window cleaners I've seen do this, but I would say it's worth the time it takes putting it in and out of your pouch, just to clean it up and then use your cloth.
Well, I mean, that's all beautiful and well and good, but this is England, and it typically has started to rain. So the enemy of the window cleaner is the rain, surely. So Mark, I mean, what do you do when it starts to rain? I mean, is that when you go home and have a cup of coffee?
Well, if it's a shower, you might choose to go back to the car and refresh yourself, bring a flask of coffee. That's always going to keep you going longer in the day. But to be honest, if you take your business seriously, the customer should understand that you do it as a business, and that if it rains, well, if they want a regular, reliable service, sometimes they're going to have to put up with you cleaning in the rain. To be honest, a day like this, it's very little falling on the window. It's not really going to make a big difference to the quality of the job. And to be honest, like you said, we're in England. By the time you come back, it's going to have rained a few times, no doubt. So it's one of those things. If you want to take your business seriously, I would say work in the rain.
Okay.
And your customers.
It's not a big deal then.
Yeah, explain to the customers that to do a professional service, to come when they want you to come, and not fall behind with your work, you're going to have to work in the rain. Most customers would understand that. I think it's window cleaners' own reservations of what the customer will think that prevents them from working in the rain.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. You've mastered the basic technique there, Mark, and the glass looks good, and that's perfect for that type of window. And you even showed us the 5 basic errors. And from memory, the most obvious one was the little drips that you left there and there.
That's right.
And then you corrected it, didn't you, by sort of making sure you went over it, and then you sort of rainbowed and spooned over, and you finished it like that, correct?
Yeah, correcting it before we finished squeegeeing the window.
I'm with you. Okay, and then another mistake you made was putting too much water on the old applicator, wasn't it?
That's right, it was far too much water. The water went everywhere. It's not necessary to use that amount of water unless the window hasn't been cleaned for a long time and it's really dirty. This is cleaned every month, so it's just needs a little bit of soap, enough to lubricate the rubber on the blade.
Right, so in other words, if it was really bad, you might have to do it again type thing. Okay, another mistake you made was that you went right to the edges, didn't you? Up to the top, I seem to remember, and it was splashed all over the place.
That's right. We want to leave a gap when we mop, especially at the top, so it doesn't run as we walk away from the window.
Right.
And that way we've got less detailing to do.
Right. And then the other mistake you made was with your scrim cloth when you were detailing. You kind of used it as a ball, didn't you? And you smeared everything when you went round, as opposed to like fingering
That's
the
correct.
window in the corner. And
And
then
the mistake that we often forget is how to finish with the squeegee.
yeah,
This
that's
window is wide enough to allow us to finish at the bottom like that, which means the water drains off onto the sill, which we clean up afterwards.
right.
Whereas if we've done a nice job squeegeeing it, it might even still look like this after we
Okay.
finish squeegeeing. So to leave all of the water on the frame, it's a shame to spoil a nicely squeegeed window.
Okay. Just as a quick aside then, Mark, I mean, this is all PVC stuff, isn't it? Would you go round cleaning the whole lot?
The PVC can be cleaned as a separate job. Usually, householders expect the window cleaners to clean the glass, and then the frames as an extra, which you charge extra for.
Okay.
So, as a rule, the frames will say clean for a couple of months, and maybe every 3 months the householder may wish to have them cleaned. But usually, we concentrate on the glass, so the less work we have to do touching the frames, the faster we're going to be working.
The basic technique that I think most of us could master. It wouldn't take too long to get the hang of that, and we like the idea of those 5 points that you helped us with, because that would save a bit of time, and as we all know, time is money in this game. Any self-employed person would save that. So are there anything, little hints and tips you can give us to help us with the more advanced techniques that we've alluded to throughout the course of the DVD that can help us make more money?
Well, we could put into practice the principle of time and motion economy.
What? Time and motion economy? What is time and motion economy?
Well, the idea is not to work harder, but to work more efficiently. So, because window cleaning's already a physically demanding job, by the end of the day, most window cleaners are going to go home tired.
Right.
So, we're not necessarily talking about speeding up our physical movements, but reducing wasted time and economising the way that we work.
Okay, all right.
For example, if you leave the bucket around the front of the house instead of bringing it around to the back and your mop's dry, you're going to have to go back around the front, you're going to come back again, you're going to lose at least a minute or two.
Okay.
Anything where you're wasting time, by the end of the day, that's all going to add up and it could cost you 2 or 3 or even more houses.
All right, okay.
But there are techniques that are more advanced than the one that we've looked at, where we employ our left hand. Because as you noticed, while we were working before, we were only using our right hand.
Yeah.
We make the same effort, but this time we use both hands.
Wait a minute, I can't see how that would work. So we need to see this in action.
Okay, I'll demonstrate it for you.
All right.
It's the same squeegeeing technique, but this time we use 2 hands. We have the applicator mop in our left hand,
Right.
the squeegee stays in the right hand, and again we start in the corner and the squeegee follows straight behind into the other corner. Now we've bent down and back up again only once.
Ah, yes.
Now if we're using only one hand, we have to do that twice, don't we? So
it is quicker. And also I noticed that there's a lot less detailing work for you to do after that.
that's right, it's actually a more effective way of cleaning, because you're naturally not going to go right into the corner of the frame, because the squeegee rests slightly across,
I'm with you, yeah.
so that you don't get, it acts as a guide against the frame.
I'm with you, yeah. Well, that's good. And you're using less water as well because you're catching the water as it
That's
comes
right.
out.
Now it's particularly on a hot day. It's not very hot today, but sometimes occasionally in England we do get sunny days, and the water dries quickly. Now if the water dries on the window, as the blade passes, it's
Yeah.
going to leave a shadow on the window, because the water's dry, it doesn't carry the water away, and we're left with nasty shadows that the householder will notice. Whereas employing this technique on a hot day, the water doesn't get a chance to dry, so it's actually not only is it quicker, but it's a more effective way of working.
Very good. Question that springs to mind, if it's dirty, the windows, is that an effective way to clean them?
That's a good question. I mean, we only passed once like that, and usually that's all it takes for a window that's cleaned regularly, is just one pass of the mop. You don't need to be doing this on a clean window, giving it a good scrub. It's just wasting time again. But if the window is dirty, by doing it up and down strokes instead of across, you can still use the same squeegee technique, and especially at the bottom of patios where the wind blows the dirt up, you might wish just to give it an extra few scrubs like that.
Okay. Very good. Okay, so one other thing. Now that's a nice big window, so it's very effective for that. But what about a smaller window? Would it still be effective on that type of window?
Well, for a small window of this size, obviously it's going to be a bit clumsy
Yeah.
to use 2 hands with a mop and applicator. The amount of time you save is negligible. It's probably not worth using that technique. For large windows like this, or particularly shops, it's an excellent way of halving the time it takes you to clean a window. But let's look at what we would do with perhaps a conservatory where there's a row of windows of this nature, where it's maybe not, we could use this technique, but there is another technique that I'd like to show you using 2 hands, applying this principle of time and motion economy, that's using both hands instead of just one.
Right, come on, let's
And
see.
we'll see if there's another way we can save some time. So this is another 2-handed technique, but instead of using the applicator in one hand and the squeegee in the other, this time we're going to be using the cloth and the squeegee together. So we'll start by mopping with one hand, which we've got the basic technique of, we don't go right to the top edge, we can do it quite quickly now. We'll work from right to left, and I'll show you why in a second. Imagine we have a long row of these. So squeegee in the right hand, cloth in the left. Same technique, but this time we do the detailing as we go. There shouldn't usually be detailing much left to do if we have a good squeegee technique. For instance, here with a crossbar, we can clean the whole bar. Nice job at the bottom. As we step to the right, we clean the frames. Careful the cloth doesn't go ahead of the squeegee.
I see. So you don't need to go back to do detailing
That's
then, do you?
right. No detailing left. Finish blade at the bottom. And just double check, make sure you haven't missed any, but there shouldn't really be any detailing left to do. Only thing left to do is again keep the customer happy, wipe the sill.
Ah, yes, of course.
But the fact that we started from the right and we work to the left means that we only make 2 movements, whereas if we'd have started here, worked down to there, back across, we'd have had to go across again.
So all these little seconds that you're saving by just moving once and twice and up and down once, does it really save that much time? And does the time motion economy thing really make any difference?
Well, if you think about it, if, for instance, we did need to wipe the bars after we'd mopped and squeegeed it, or to do any detailing, even if it was only 10-15 seconds extra on each window, over the course of a day that all adds up into minutes, and minutes of course into hours, but a house would maybe take you 15 minutes. So if you save yourself 15 minutes throughout the day through these little techniques, well, that's at least a house. But by employing the two-handed squeegee and applicator technique, you can literally halve the time on big windows, which over the course of the day is going to save you a lot of time.
Okay, thank you. So we've seen the basic technique and how good that was, and we've seen the two-handed technique and how good that was. But how much difference is there really? Well, what we'll do is we'll put it to the test. We'll get Mark to do the two-handed technique, and then his twin brother, who reckons there's not much difference between the two, will do the basic technique, and we'll see just how much quicker it is. All right? So come on. So we've seen how to do patios with flat glass, but is there a different technique for leaded lights or Georgian windows?
Right, yeah, leaded windows, not a window cleaner's favourite. It is a bit slow because you can't use the same squeegee technique.
Okay.
It really depends on how dirty the windows are. If they're cleaned regularly, i.e. fortnightly or monthly, you might get away with just using a damp cloth, humid enough as if it's just been steamed over an iron. Enough for the humidity to pick up the dirt off the window. If it's a totally dry cloth, you might even end up with remnants of like cloth fibres on the window, so you don't want a dry cloth. It has to be a little bit damp. This is the right consistency of dampness. Starting in the corners, make sure we do those, and be methodical. Do each row maybe one way and then the other way. That should be enough if they're kept on top of. That one was fairly clean, but this one is a little bit more dirty. What we might do here to make them the moisture sufficient to collect the dirt, I would do a little squirt of moisture, spread that about the window, and then use a dry part of the cloth to do exactly the same. Methodically go around, make sure we get in the corners. If it's really dirty, I would actually mop the whole window as if it was a normal window, but this time I would use a blade like we did before, an old blade, because it could damage the blade and it'd be no good to use on other windows. And it doesn't really matter about doing all that technique, it's just taking the most of the water off.
I see.
So as you can see, it does take a little bit longer to do a good job, so really your pricing should be in accord with that. I would usually charge extra for a leaded house.
And would that be the same for Georgian windows as well?
Yeah, shall I have a look at Georgian windows?
Okay. So these are Georgian windows, and I bet these are a real pain to do. So how would you do these then, Mark?
Well, again, we face the same problem as the leaded windows, where you wouldn't really use a squeegee to do them quickly, so the cloth's got to be the right consistency, not too wet, otherwise it's going to leave streaks.
Right.
Too dry and it's not going to be effective. So what I would do, assess how dirty they are. If they're not too bad, just do a dab of moisture on each one and work it in until it's dry with a nice damp, slightly damp cloth. Now that's very slow, painstaking work.
Right.
So if you want to speed things up and you've got the energy, you can use 2 cloths. Do that little one. And mirror what we're doing to speed things up. On a pub window like this, nicotine on the inside is terrible. Personally, I would avoid doing Georgian windows.
Yeah, I agree. They look like a real pain to do. So you mentioned there, Mark, the insides of a house. Now there's a point, that's a whole new field you haven't talked about. Are there any other hints and techniques that we need to develop for that?
Yeah, let's have a look at the inside of a typical residential home.
What are the advantages in using the two-handed technique that you've showed us already on doing the insides of the windows?
Okay, well if we're doing the insides of somebody's property, the last thing we want to do is get water everywhere over the windowsill.
Right.
So I would use less water, but using the two-handed technique, slightly different. Start by mopping the top here,
Yeah.
and then as we squeegee, we keep the squeegee, the mop underneath, and we collect the drips, any that are dropping. And there's very little, if any, water to clean up. There's none on the sill, and the household is not going to have any complaints about that.
Right, excellent. Okay, that's on the insides. Now, does that often happen? Do customers ask you to come inside and clean the windows inside?
Yeah, occasionally you will get asked to go inside and to clean the windows. There's 2 things that you need to have in mind if that's the case. Firstly, do they smoke? Because if there's smoke, then there's going to be nicotine inside, and nicotine is really difficult to get off the windows, so it's going to take you longer. You may wish to adjust your price accordingly.
Right.
The other thing is to, while you're cleaning the outside, ask them to remove any obstacles from off the window sills.
Okay.
2 benefits of that is it's going to save you time doing it when you come to do inside, and it'll save you the embarrassment. With all of this cumbersome equipment on, it's quite easy to turn and to knock over an ornament,
Right.
and that'll save you the embarrassment of doing that.
Okay. No, that's good. Thank you. Well, it's been a long day, Mark, and we've learned an awful lot. So we'd like to thank you for all your hard work there and the benefit of your wisdom. But we've got 1 or 2 little questions we'd like to ask you that perhaps some of the newer window cleaners may want to ask. And the first one's a strange one because it's about motivation. Now, when you wake up in the middle of winter and it's freezing cold, it's raining, and you just don't feel like getting up and cleaning windows, how do you motivate yourself?
That's right, it can be very difficult, especially if you work alone when it's really cold outside. So it's good to have a set appointment, something that you have to get up out of bed. Even if it's cosy and it's cold outside, you've got to get up because you've got an appointment, whether it be with a customer that you've committed yourself to go there at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, or whether it be with somebody that you work with. but have an appointment, otherwise it's very easy just to stay in bed.
So, okay, Mark, so how do you organise your workday and the round that you have and that you're on?
Okay, well the workday itself I would break up into units. I would think by a certain time I would have a goal to be somewhere. So for each house I would say this house should take me 20 minutes, half an hour, and try to meet that goal. That's going to keep you motivated as well, and it's going to be helping you to keep going throughout the day.
Mm-hmm.
If possible, you want to be minimising any travel time, so the more compact the round is, the better. The best way to do it is to have your round in one area, keep it all close, avoid going in and out of the car as much as you can. If you can do one house after another, that's the ideal kind of work. Now some people have monthly work, but they only get round it every 6 weeks. Well, that's not really wise, because A, the householder complains that you're late, and B, there's 2 weeks extra dirt on the windows when you get there. So really, that 2 weeks extra work is just baggage. Drop that, refine it, and keep the best work. Do the best work first in the month, so that if you are late because of weather, it's the worst work that gets done last or missed.
Okay, I understand. Now, something that is close to all of us, our hearts, is how much money we earn. So it's really important to price up correctly. So how do you price a job up?
Well, some window cleaners might count it by the windows and how, have a certain amount that they want for each window, but I would say the best way to do it is to have a figure in mind of what you want to earn an hour, count in travel time, and then work out how long you think the job's going to take. So the overall time of the job, and then if you have a figure in mind for what you want to earn for an hour, say, and the job's going to take you half an hour, then half that figure and add a little bit on for travel to your next job.
Okay, that's good. So what about the first time clean? Because the windows may not have been cleaned for years and years and years, so there's obviously more dirt. Do you charge more for that?
Yeah, if you can, try and get double for that. Although if the householders, you want the job and the householder's reluctant to pay more, maybe it's an investment to do a good job the first time. The first impression is going to be a transformation from a first time clean. It will take you twice, 3 times as long, but it's a new customer and you are going to profit after that. So it's a good first impression. You may get referrals through it, so you could view it as an investment. But if possible, obviously, if you can charge double, then that would be a sensible thing to do.
Okay, so it's important to have a good customer rapport, how to get on with your customers. But what does that mean to you then, customer rapport? Give us some advice.
Yeah, customer rapport is essential if you want a good solid round where customers are going to be loyal to you. You want to have time to be able to know them by name, have a chat. But then again, obviously, as we mentioned earlier, you're basically out there, you're out there to work, to earn money, to provide for your family or whatever, so you can't just be having cups of tea all day long. So a good way to do it, which should save you time, is to ring the doorbell, either when you get there or just about a few minutes before you're finished, so that when the customer comes to the door, you're not waiting for them to collect, to go for the purse or whatever, but you can have a chat while you're working, and you're not stopping your work, but you're still having that customer relationship, that customer rapport. But always use the name and have a friendly smile.
Yeah.
Dress nice. We don't want to be smoking or swearing around the property, and be respectful.
Sure.
If it's early morning,
Yeah.
or if
Yes.
the shift workers, they may be sleeping.
Okay. And what happens about getting paid if they're not in, for example?
Well, a lot of window cleaners may collect in the evening, but I personally enjoy having the free time in the evening. So what I do is I put a slip through with the address to forward a cheque.
Okay.
And even if it means that they build it up to 2 or 3 times before they send it, that's fine. You are going to get your money at the end of the day. Most customers are good payers, and if you have that rapport, you won't have any problems, and it's save you a lot of time collecting, which a lot of window cleaners, it's the bane of their life.
Right, okay. Now, throughout the course of this DVD, we've not seen or even mentioned ladders.
That's because at the moment it's a little bit controversial. Recent working at height regulations have come out which have not meant a ladder ban, and ladders are still used frequently. You'll still see window cleaners using ladders, It's not illegal to use ladders at this point in time, and it's doubtful that it'll ever be completely banned to use ladders. But the regulations do say that ladders should only be used if it's not reasonably practical to use other forms of access, such as extension poles or water-fed poles. Obviously, if you're on the ground, it's a lot safer.
Right. Water-fed poles. Wow, that sounds interesting. Sounds to me like that's the subject of a whole new DVD. What do you think?
I think you're right, Steve. It's a whole new approach to window cleaning, and I think it's the future of window cleaning. It's safer, it does a very effective job, but it's perhaps daunting for someone who's going to be spending more outlay. So choosing and using a water-fed pole is definitely the subject for another DVD.
So window cleaning isn't rocket science, but there is more to it than meets the eye. We've learnt many hints and tips today that Mark's given us to help us start off our business or to improve our technique. However, we do have to say that the future of window cleaning is with water-fed poles. And if you want to take window cleaning seriously, that's the way forward. So the subject of our next DVD will cover the questions such as what's the best system to buy and how do you use a water-fed pole? Well, in the meantime, all the best with your business, safe window cleaning, and thank you for listening.